welcome to another KidScoop Media Online. Today we have Sandi Raffi. How do I say your last name? Vanian?
Vanian.
Vanian, okay. Who will be speaking to our scoopers. So I think who's going to start this is Gabby. So Gabby, you take it away.
Thank you for letting us interview you. What is your favorite part about being a flight attendant?
I love the fact that I get to interact with so many people on a flight. So when people come on board, you have the opportunity to hear their stories. So a passenger comes on and you don't know why they're flying, but sometimes you get to hear these amazing stories, like they're going to a graduation, or they're going to see family members for the first time, or they're going to a wedding. And it's really interesting to hear their journey. Mostly it's happy, but then sometimes it can be sad too. Sometimes they're going to a funeral or that sort of thing. But it's really interesting to hear what their journey is and why they're traveling. So that I love to get to know my passengers.
Your favorite place you've flown to, and did you get to spend a lot of time there?
So my favorite places, I have different ones for different reasons. So I do a lot of Hawaii, and obviously I get to spend 24 hours there. So when I'm there for 24 hours, I do get to enjoy my time there. So a lot of times I'll go hiking and kayaking with my off time. So during what we call our rest. And my other favorite is Boston. I love Boston. I like to see the leaves changing and the different seasons. They get snow and they get actual seasons where we don't get that here in California. So it's beautiful.
Have you ever been in an emergency landing?
I have not had an emergency landing, thankfully, but I am prepared. That's what we train for. So most of our training and most of our qualifying for our job every year. So once you become a flight attendant, every year you have to re-qualify to maintain your wings, to keep your wings. And it's one of those things where you are practicing constantly for emergencies, because that's our main function on the plane. It's not just slinging Cokes and snacks like everybody thinks, but I have not experienced a firsthand emergency landing. I have had aborted landings where you're going to land, but something happens and instead you just they come in for the landing and they pull back up. And it's kind of norm. Stuff like that happens. It could be fog. Sometimes it's weather related. I have had a lot of medical emergencies on board that I've had to deal with.
How has your job changed since this crisis began?
A lot of things have changed. So our service has changed. We are required to wear masks to work. So we have to have a uniform compliant neutral mask. We have to practice social distancing on the plane. So where we would normally sit next to each other on a jump seat is no longer. We're now separated and kind of spread apart. The FAA had to approve all of those things. And our service has changed. So when we go through with our cart, before we used to do a full beverage service and do meal service and things like that, we can't do that anymore. So they have us, we kind of give out a water bottle and that's it. So it's kind of a bummer thing because part of the service was interacting with your passengers. So we don't get as much of that anymore. So because the meal service has changed, most people do bring their own food and snacks on board. and they don't have to wear their mask while they're eating. So as long as they're eating, drinking, they can take off their mask to do that.
Follow up to that is a mask required for the passengers at all times?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, so they have to bring on the mask to get into the airport, to go through security, and then to get on the airplane. And then once on the airplane, as they are required to wear it, but they may take it off for consuming beverages or eating their food and snacks. And the flight attendants technically aren't enforcing it. We're informing.
Is it safe right now being in an enclosed space with other people for a stretch of time?
Yes, I actually do feel safe being in an enclosed space for however long the duration of the flight is. I do personally, I practice a lot of things to boost my immune system. So as a flight attendant, you're exposed to so many things all the time. People travel with the flu and people travel, they're not supposed to, but they do. And so you're kind of like you're exposed to a plethora of things. I'm exposed to 150 people at least each flight, 3 times a day, that sort of thing. So that's a lot of people. So I do the usual. I try to take vitamin C, I take my vitamin D, I take a multivitamin, and try to stay healthy as possible, eating the right foods and exercising and just staying in good health myself, so it boosts my immune system so that I'm not as worried as I should be, I guess, being exposed to different things.
How do you keep people social distance on the plane during this time?
So technically we're keeping the middle seat open. We can't guarantee it, but Alaska is one of the airlines that has been really good about spacing people out. So keeping the middle seat open at least, and then moving people to kind of give more distance, even including with the flight attendants.
Do you think there are any precautions that have been implemented during the pandemic that should be continued in the future?
I think actually that's really a good question, because we are always concerned when we get somebody on board who isn't feeling well. So one of the things I do like is that we're more vigilant about calling for MedLink and things like that if somebody doesn't seem well. And that's our normal tendency before takeoff, because whatever is happening on the ground can be magnified up in the air. The pressurization and that sort of thing can intensify a medical situation. And when you're in the air, you don't have necessarily access to an ambulance or things like that. So it's really important for us to always be aware of people's body language and things like that. It's good for people who aren't well not to travel. And I think people are more aware of it now, where before people would say, oh, I don't want to miss my vacation, I'm going to get on even if I have the flu, kind of a thing. And I think people are way more aware of it, and people are more likely to point out that person doesn't look so well, or that person doesn't seem like they're doing well on the ground before we get up in the air. So hopefully people continue to not travel if they're not feeling well, and take that part of it seriously.
Do your passengers seem more timid or concerned as they board the airplane?
You have a mixture of both. Yeah, so you have the passengers that are concerned, And you usually do have a good mixture on any given day, because some people sometimes are flying for the first time, and so they tend to be, you have your people who are afraid of flying, you have your people who are frequent flyers, but they're not liking all of the stuff related to the virus. You have varying degrees, and I think it comes up regardless. So I think it happens on a regular basis where you have a mixture of emotions coming on the plane.
How is the airport different now than it was before the pandemic?
It's really empty, which is a sad statement, but the airport is pretty empty, and you know, they have all the requirements now of when you get into the airport and go through TSA, you have to have a mask, and that sort of thing. But I would say the biggest change that we've noticed is how the airports look like ghost towns. They're like, there's not as many people. Before, like, the security line would be out the door, and now it's kind of really empty. Although I have heard from other friends that are flight attendants that other cities and different cities are starting to see a higher number of people flying. So we're starting to see travel go up again.
Do you think people can travel safely? If so, what steps would you suggest people take? For example, should passengers wipe down their seats with disinfectant when they board?
It never hurts to wipe down the passenger seats when you board, although I feel that airlines are doing a pretty good job of implementing that. At least my airline, I know I've watched them in the beginning of this, bring on the crew, take a little bit more time to go through each seat and each touch point. So things that people would normally touch, like the call light, the reading light button, the tray table, the window, things where you are more likely touching, them spending more time cleaning. But I personally, as a passenger, when I go for fun to places, I will wipe down my area, because sometimes different airlines are turning their planes around pretty quickly, and you just don't know. So it's not a bad precaution to have in place.
What cultures have interested you most during your travels as a flight attendant?
I mostly travel to, I've done Costa Rica, I've done Hawaii, I've done Mexico. I always enjoy all of those cultures, and even like the American culture varies from, you know, East Coast and West Coast. So East Coast, you have your Boston people and your New Yorkers and that sort of thing. But for my fun travels, I have been to so many places, and I loved going to Egypt. I thought that was an amazing trip that I've taken, and was able to go with another flight attendant. And one day we were in a botanical garden and met a family from Sudan who was there celebrating their daughter's, I think, engagement. It was like an arranged marriage, and they were dancing in the park, and they saw me looking and welcomed me in, and it was fun. I danced with them and took pictures with them, and while our communication was difficult, we managed, and it was fun. So I feel like it's like every culture has something interesting to contribute. So it's like a matter of just getting out there and getting to experience as much as you possibly can.
Do you have any funny stories of something that happened on a plane?
I have so many funny stories, but one of the funniest was somebody So normally when you travel with a dog, you have to declare it. Like you have to say that you're either paying for the dog or you bring the dog on as an emotional support. So I was on a flight where there was no dog that was supposed to be on board. And all of a sudden somebody comes running to the front and they're like, Sandi, there's a dog on board and it's running up and down the aisles. And I was like, are you kidding me? There's looking at my thing. No dog, no dog on board. Yeah, there's a dog on board. So we had to chase down the dog and find who the owner was. And of course, nobody wants to claim the dog because they snuck it on board. And so we finally figured out who it belonged to. And I guess they had brought it on board with a blanket over a duffel bag and snuck it on. But the dog was running amok through the airplane. We've also had another time where, and I was not on this flight, but there was a flight where somebody, before 9/11, somebody snuck on 2 snakes. And I guess the lady fell asleep and the snake took off and was going up like right by a passenger's leg. And eventually they picked the most junior flight attendant to go grab the snake, throw it in a trash bag. They kept making announcements and nobody would claim the snake. So they finally captured the snake, put it in a trash bag. And at the end of the flight, the person was like, what do you mean it's in a trash bag in the bathroom? They were like, we've made a million announcements. But yeah, that's kind of snakes on a plane has happened. We've had scorpions on the plane. What else have we had? We had scorpions, snakes, the dogs that aren't supposed to be on there that get out. All kinds of funny stuff that happens.
What is the martial arts training like?
The martial arts training. So when we go to, you mean for security training?
Yeah.
So when we go to our training every year to requalify, so we go through initial training and they do a segment where they do teach us different moves and things like that to protect ourselves. And then every year we kind of go through it again. Some of us do more training on our own. So on my own, I was taking kickboxing classes and things like that. We have a dummy that we call Bob and we practice on Bob. So one of the things that we do every year is we get to punch and kick and smack Bob in the ears and things like that. Like we go through scenarios like, how do you protect yourself if somebody is coming at you? We also have, in addition to like the physical part of the training, we have things on board that we can use. So we do have restraints that we use if we had to handcuff somebody. They're made out of lace type, like shoelaces almost, that we use, and once we tie them, we can't loosen them, kind of a thing. So we have a bunch of those on board. And then we can use things like wine bottles, coffee pots, our heels. Our heels are so good as a weapon. This will hurt somebody if we had to. And so luckily, I've never had to use my skills. But I do know flight attendants who have been put in situations. Usually, though, a passenger or passengers, plural, will get up and help.
Do you feel like the communications between flight attendants has been sacrificed due to this virus?
No, I feel, well, communication, how? Like, because we have to talk through a mask?
Yeah, and just like like just flight attendants like communicating with each other and like really interacting? Like, do you feel like that's been sacrificed?
No, I think because our job requires so much communication that even with the mask, we still have to communicate. We have to brief with each other. We're constantly communicating because you're constantly getting what's happening on the airplane, and you have observations, and that's one of our things. Like, we also have to communicate with the pilots who are behind a door. So a lot of times we have to call them and discuss a lot of different things with them. So I feel communication is key always, and I don't feel like that has changed.
Do you see an age range in which people who are flying right now?
Like specific ages? No, I think there's a mixture of all ages still, because some people are visiting family members and things like that. And for a while there, on certain routes, you'll notice certain age ranges, like the Boston San Diego or the Boston Los Angeles. A lot of times you would see, like during the time when this first started happening, as the schools were shutting down, you would see a lot of students trying to get back to their homes and that sort of thing. So those age ranges were flying a lot. But then you do have family members and things like that that are going back and forth to see other family members, and for other reasons other than COVID, like you have other health related issues, cancer, and you also have other illnesses that people are constantly traveling to see people. And it's, I feel like that hasn't changed as much, that there's still a variety of ages traveling.
What tips would you give people for flying?
Tips. So I always tell people to bring a refillable water bottle. So you can go through security with an empty water bottle and then fill it once you're past security. So that way you can have a nice size drink to bring with you. So if you get thirsty and you want more than what the regular service is right now, especially. Snacks are always good. Things to read, things to do on the plane. We used to provide on longer flights the entertainment tablets. You could rent those and that sort of thing, but they're not doing that right now. So entertainment, if you wanted entertainment, like having your headphones so that works with your device, so that you can make the time go by fast.
I guess I have one final question, and it just came to me. You know how a lot of airlines have famous fashion designers designing their uniform? Like,
Yes.
you know, Virgin has Vivienne Westwood, and I think Air France had Balenciaga. Does Alaska Airlines have a famous designer that designs?
We had a designer that was from the Pacific Northwest. Her name is Luli. And actually, she designed this uniform. It's our new uniform. I don't know if you can see, but it's a new look for Alaska Airlines. I actually like it. It's very comfortable. So it's difficult when you have a designer because we have to work in it. It's not just putting it on. It has to be functional.
Right.
And we wanted, you know, you want pockets and you want things that are not material that's a little stretchy. I mean, I have to be able to do emergency functions in this. So I have to be able to deploy a slide and do all kinds of stuff, CPR in it and that sort of thing. So you want it to be kind of flexible and not restricting. So I feel she did a really good job with this uniform.
Have you adjusted to food up in the sky?
So I bring my own food, and this is my lunch tote that I carry with me. And I usually pack all my food in there for if I'm going on a 2-day, a 3-day, or a 4-day trip. I usually don't do less than that. I don't do churns. So I will meal prep ahead of time, and I freeze all my food into little packages and flatten them out, frozen, so they fit nicely in my bag. And then I carry a Hot Logic in here that I take on my layovers. And this is my oven. It's a mini oven, and I put it in my, so on the airplane, I have access to an oven that I use. But when I get to my layover, I put my food in this container, put it on here, and plug it in. And in an hour, my meal is nice and hot. And so I get all my cooking done ahead of time. So that way I don't have to eat out a lot, because otherwise I'm spending a lot of money in restaurants, and I'm for me personally, trying to stay healthy. And so I try to limit myself to eating like healthy foods by bringing it all.
Do you have health insurance and paid sick leave that you're satisfied with?
As a matter of fact, I do. Alaska gives us really, really, really good medical insurance, and I pay a portion of it. But I am very happy with it. And my health insurance, I provide for my family. So my husband is on my health insurance, and my son, who is 19, is on my health insurance. And so that is an amazing part of this job. We get really good benefits. Sick leave as well. We earn a certain amount of sick leave with the days that we work. So the trips that we work give us X amount of sick days for us to use at our discretion. And so if we're not feeling well, we can absolutely use that. And Alaska is really, really, I want to say they're such a good company to work for as far as benefits goes, and our contract. When we are sick online, if I were to have, sometimes like things will happen where all of a sudden your ears will block. And you were fine when you initially started your trip, and then all of a sudden you're landing and your ears block and you can't clear them. Well, you would call out sick online, and the company would keep you at the hotel that you're at for the layover, and you wouldn't be able to fly again until you got clearance. But they would take care of that for you. Like, you don't pay for that. They may want to make sure that you're okay to fly. So they keep you at the hotel until you're feeling better and can go. So they have a lot of things that make them a really great company to work for. I hope to have you guys on a flight. That would be fun.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. You guys did a great job. Thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.